Hi, today we're going to be talking about things I think you should know before moving to Miami. These are some pros, some cons, and other things that just became apparent to me after moving here. So let's get into it. Okay, so I have to give a little disclaimer. This video is all my opinion, and because of that, I think it's important that you know a little bit about me. Hi, my name is Rosa. I just moved to Miami almost a year ago, just a little bit over 10 months ago to be exact. And before this, I have lived in the Netherlands my entire life, with the exception of a short exchange to Ottawa, Canada, but I digress. I think it's important to take into account where I'm coming from. So moving from Europe to Miami might be a whole different experience than moving, for example, from New York to Miami. I just think that's important to note before getting into my opinions. Another little disclaimer, I have seen some of these videos where they're like pros and cons of Miami, things you should know, etc., that directly contradict my opinions. So take everything with a grain of salt. Again, this is just my experience, my opinion. You might not agree with me at all, and that's okay. Also, one little note. My husband and I live in Brickell, so I don't have any comparison for any other neighborhoods in Miami, so do take that into account. Okay, let's get into the video. So let's get the somewhat negativity out of the way and start with the cons. First and foremost, I think the most important one is the cost of living. The cost of living in Miami is just quite high, especially compared to the Netherlands. Maybe not so much compared to like New York or another big city, but compared to the Netherlands, the cost of living is quite a lot higher, especially things like rent, groceries, and just going out to dinner, for example, is way more expensive here than in the Netherlands. Also, like I mentioned, we are living in Brickell, so it might very well be the case that we are just paying an insane amount of rent. I'm sure that's true. I have a more in-depth video about what we actually spent to live here on my channel. It's called How Much It Actually Costs to Live in Miami in 2025. I will link it up here in case you want to check it out. I go in depth about things like rent, groceries, going out for dinner, services, gym memberships, stuff like that. We'll leave that to that video. But yeah, overall, we are spending a lot more money to just live here than we used to in the Netherlands. Another little con of living in Miami is the traffic. There's just a lot of cars. I remember when we went to a football game for the first time, which was super exciting. We were gonna drive there with some friends and they said, okay, I think we need to leave because it's about an hour drive. And I thought, whoa, it's really far away. It wasn't. It was like a 20-minute drive, but with Miami traffic, it was an hour drive, which was crazy to me because I've never had to calculate that much extra time for just everyday traffic. So that's definitely something to get used to. But traffic here feels like insanity to me. I don't think I could do it. I have a lot of respect for people who drive here. Yeah, it can be quite intense, at least from my perspective. That's also one of the reasons why we're so happy with where we live, and also we're more prepared to pay like a high rent price because it's so close to everything where we want to be. It's very close to my husband's job. It's very close to a very nice gym that we love. It's close to a lot of grocery stores and restaurants and shops and things to do. So we do a lot of things on foot, and when we do want to go somewhere that's a little bit further away, we take an Uber. But definitely something to consider when moving here. These should all be taken with a grain of salt. But another little con is that when it rains, it pours. It's insane. I've never seen anything like it. How many times am I gonna say that I'm from the Netherlands? But anyway, I have grown up with a lot of rain. Like, I know what it's like to be rained on a lot. But anyway, it's completely different because in the Netherlands it will start raining and you'll be like, oh, okay, there's a little drizzle, quickly bike home, like stuff like that. Here, I was standing outside, I felt one little drop of rain. I was like, oh, okay, I'm almost where I want to go. I'll quickly walk there, I'll be good. 0.2 seconds later, it comes pouring down. Completely soaked, of course. It's also not cold, so it's not that bad to be rained on. Like, of course, it's not nice if you just did your makeup and your hair and your outfit's cute and then you get rained on completely and you're soaked. But most of the time it's not cold, so it's not awful and you dry fairly quickly. So that's sort of positive, but yeah, it's intense. And also, in regard to it raining that hard, Brickell gets flooded, which I had heard people talking about in videos like these. I couldn't quite envision what that meant, but parts of Brickell truly just get flooded. Like a friend of mine had water running into the lobby of her building. They couldn't use the elevators because, of course, they would be flooded. It's not great, electricity and all. And she sent me a video from her balcony of cars just driving through water. I had never seen anything like it. It was insanity. Also something to keep in mind when moving to especially Brickell, then maybe good to know, I think. I had no clue that it would be this bad, but it's true. It's not often the case, but apparently it happens. So something to know. Okay, and then again related to that, hurricane season. Like the only experience I had with hurricanes was from the news. When Hurricane Milton hit Tampa last year, luckily it didn't go over Miami. So we did have a tropical storm and we were advised to take everything off of our balconies because there was a lot of wind and storm and heavy rain. It was like a very intense storm, but we were good. But the damage that these hurricanes can do is so scary. Hurricane season is really something. So far, what I have noticed during hurricane season was these tropical storms that could get quite intense, but all in all, doable. And also like extremely hot weather, followed then by thunder and lightning. And then the next couple of days would be even more humid, so it would feel even warmer and like stickier. Yeah, that's something to know. And side note, hurricane season is from the 1st of June until the 30th of November. Just in case you were wondering. I learned that recently. It's just something to keep in mind. I'd never lived through a hurricane season before, so it was something to get used to. So those are the big kind of cons that I thought of. And now we're moving on to the pros, which is way more fun because let's move on to positive things. Weather. So other than hurricane season, weather is lovely most of the time. Currently, we're just entering hurricane season again. I'm looking outside my window because there's a gray cloud hanging over me. We have had a lovely winter. It was my first winter in Miami and my God, I do realize now why people love the winter here so much. When we first arrived, it was the end of July, so quite warm. When I spoke to new people, they would say, "Oh, how are you liking it?" And I'm like, "I'm loving the weather." And they would be like, "This is horrible. Wait until it's winter and you will see how lovely it is." And I was like, I don't know, I'm already enjoying like just the weather now. And now I do see what they mean, because the winter was so lovely. It wasn't humid, like it was just nice and warm. Something that I had to get used to when we first arrived here was that you would be completely clean. You would walk outside, you would spend 1 second in the sun waiting for example for a red light before crossing the street or something like that. And my skin would just go, I would have a thin layer of sweat covering my whole body because it was just so hot and humid outside. And luckily, the people here don't f*** around when it comes to AC. So inside buildings, it's lovely. The AC is top notch. I, again, am from Europe. I have had my fair share of like warm days in the Netherlands or in France, where it would be 30 degrees, 35 degrees Celsius. I will put Fahrenheit here. But like 30 something degrees Celsius, and it would be so hot. On those super hot days that were extremely rare, don't get me wrong, but on those super hot days in the summer in the Netherlands, the only thing you could do was just like sit or sleep, because as soon as you move a little bit, you would be sweating, overheating, it would be awful. But here you can actually go out and do things, because at least all the stores, all the buildings, all facilities have amazing AC. So yeah, weather is super nice. Okay, another one of my favorite parts of living in Miami is that it's such a lively city. It has so much to offer. It's great. It's great. And the most fun part is that you can really choose where you want to live, what you're in the mood for. So you have the busy city life in Brickell and downtown, and you have a little bit more quieter neighborhoods in Coconut Grove and Coral Gables. Of course, the beach is just a short drive away. So either like North Beach or South Beach. You can like go party in South Beach, of course. You could live there if you want, if that's what you're into. Yeah, it has a lot to offer for a lot of different wants and needs. And in the other sense that it has a lot to offer, it is that there's always something to do. Like there's festivals, parties, or there's like big events going on that you can go to. There's these amazing restaurants, but I will get into that a little bit later. So much activities to do. For example, I love going to the gym and fitness and stuff like that. So in that category, there's a lot of workout classes, and there's like SoulCycle, Pilates, different kinds of gyms, yoga. I honestly believe that there's something for everybody, and I really like that. There's always something to do if you want to go out and have fun, or on the weekend think, okay, let's explore here and there. For example, there's the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens, which I love. I've been there once now, but we're probably gonna go again this week, which is why it's very top of mind, and I'm very excited about it. It's this beautiful, beautiful house that was built for this guy, and his family gave it to Miami, and they kept it as like a museum, and you can visit the museum and the gardens, and it has all this information about his life and the artwork and the designers of the house. It's just gorgeous, and the gardens are stunning as well, so that's very fun to visit if that's more your cup of tea. There's just a lot to do, which I love. There's always something, you can always find something to do, which is nice. Another pro of Miami is that there's quite good public transport, and it's especially Brickell and downtown is very walkable. My husband and I have walked from Brickell all the way to Wynwood once, which was very nice, but a little bit harder to do because a lot of the time there would not be a sidewalk, or there would be construction leaving us to walk on the road. But yeah, in our experience, we haven't like needed a car. So far we have done everything either by walking, public transport, or Ubering, but I do really see how it would be convenient to have a car. So I get it. For example, I have gone to IKEA a couple of times with my friend, and in that case she would drive, and then it was very, very convenient that she had a car with a trunk that we could load stuff into, stuff like that. So I do see the value of having a car, but so far we've been doing fine without it. But yeah, I think it's all about personal preference and like the activities that you're planning to do that maybe are nice to have a car, but except for special occasions, like going to IKEA, all of the things I do every day are walking distance. So for us and for me, it has been working out to not have a car. But yeah, at least you don't need one to, for example, go to the grocery store or stuff like that. But yeah, it's all about personal preference, as is everything. Ooh, also, in regard to having a car and driving a car here, parking seems to be super expensive, and in some parts of the city quite hard to find. So also something to take into account. For example, a little while back, some of my friends were actually in Miami and they came to visit me as well, and that was super, super fun. And they had rented a car, and when they tried to visit me, we were looking for parking, but that was basically impossible. So we ended up doing valet at my building, which was fine, but quite expensive. Because of that, I'm actually really, really liking Ubering and then walking somewhere else and then Ubering back from there. Like, you don't have to return to your car, and you don't have to think about parking and how long you are allowed to park somewhere, because some spots you're only allowed to park for up to 2 hours or up to 4 hours or stuff like that. So I've been really liking Ubering, but again, personal preference. Oh, and quickly, in regard to public transport, there are buses, there are trolleys, which are actually free, which is super nice. There's also the Metro Mover, which is free. It's like a little above ground metro, as the name suggests. And that's really, really nice. And there's also the train. So a lot of options. And you see a lot of people driving like little scooters or electric skateboards or stuff like that to quickly be able to go from one end of town to the other. So that also works if that's maybe something you want to get into. So although I think it's definitely convenient, you don't need a car to be able to get around. Okay, moving on. So like I said, I wanted to get back to the amazing restaurants that are here. Oh, one of my favorite parts of Miami is exploring amazing restaurants. We have been to so many already. Some of my favorites so far have been Lafayette in Brickell. That's been so, so good. Delicious food, great ambiance. I also really like LPM, which stands for La Petite Maison. That's lovely. Yeah, I just love food, and I love trying new restaurants. And Miami has bajillions great options to discover and to try. So that has been really, really great. If you're interested in hearing more about my favorite restaurants in Miami, I also speak about it a little bit in that video that I talked about how much it actually costs to live in Miami. Closely related, but another pro of Miami is the nightlife. There's always a club open somewhere. There's always something to do. It's a great place to have nice cocktails and nice drinks. So if that's what you're into, that's also very, very nice here. Then another pro, in my opinion, is that people are very friendly. It's very different than in the Netherlands, where you don't very quickly make like some small talk with someone that you stand in an elevator with, for example, or stuff like that. Here, it's very easy to start a conversation with someone and just have a quick chat. This can be very nice, especially if you just moved here and you don't know a lot of people. It's very easy to talk to someone, and that might not mean that you become immediate friends or stuff like that, but it, at least in my experience, is very nice if you don't have a large circle here yet, to just be able to speak to someone and just kind of not feel as alone, even for a little moment. So yeah, even just standing in an elevator or getting a coffee somewhere, maybe you are waiting for your coffee, you spark a conversation with someone, or you talk to someone who has a super cute dog and you start a conversation that way. It can be very, very nice, and people are very friendly and willing to have a quick little conversation and just small talk, and that is very nice, and I very much appreciated that from everybody I encountered here. Yeah, that wouldn't very quickly happen in the Netherlands, so that was definitely different from my experience, but I really appreciated it, so that's really nice. Also, one of my last big pro is that Miami is a huge melting pot of different cultures, which I really, really appreciate, because Amsterdam is the same. Like, there's so many different people, different cultures, and I love that. I think that's so great. That's also why you can get a lot of great food here from different cultures and different countries, which is again like my main motivator. But a lot of different people from everywhere, which is so nice, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, that's really fun. Okay, now that we've talked about some cons and some pros, I have noticed some things that I wanted to discuss as well that aren't necessarily pros or cons, but are just differences or things that were new to me that are maybe good to know and to keep in mind if you're deciding to move here. First of all, people honk a lot, which might sound super silly to say, but I was not used to that at all. And in my experience, I drive in the Netherlands and not here, but in my experience, when people honk, they are mad at you, like it's out of anger. Whereas here, I think I was kind of scared because people honk a lot and I expected them to be mad. But a lot of the time it's like, hey, beep beep, I'm here, like watch, like just so you know, don't like bump into me because I'm driving here, like stuff like that. It's more like a heads up. Or people honk because they are stuck in traffic and they're annoyed. So as you maybe know, there's a bridge in Brickell, well there's two, but there are some bridges over the Miami River, and when they open, like everything stops. All the traffic stops, basically. So on both sides of the bridge, everything will be completely full of cars, and some people will just start to lean on the honk, I think to just express themselves. Which was something to get used to, but it's just something to know. It's just different. A really small one, but that people say you're good instead of no problem or stuff like that. I remember I almost walked into someone because we were coming like around the corner, you know what I mean? So I almost bumped into someone. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And he's like, you're good. And I was taken aback because I didn't know that expression. But that's fun. And now I say it so that I am one of the locals. So you're good. Also, something that I had to get used to that's obviously different from in the Netherlands is that the taxes on products or stuff like that are added later. But luckily in Miami that's not very high because we don't have statewide tax. So it's not a lot of tax that comes on top, which is good. Yeah, I remember specifically from my time when living in Ottawa that I would be shocked at the cash register, and I would try to like sort of calculate how much everything would be with tax, but then still it would kind of be a surprise. And here it is the same, but because the tax is so low, it's not bad, like it's not that big of a difference, which is good. But yeah, it's something to keep in mind if you're not used to it. Maybe you are used to it and you're like, girl, we know. Something to keep in mind, there's taxes on top. And related to that, you're also expected to tip for a lot of things, which I wasn't used to either because that's not customary in the Netherlands. Maybe you tip at like a nice restaurant or stuff like that, so it happens, but here it is very custom to tip for everything. Also for like, for example, your Uber Eats delivery, or especially at like a restaurant, but also at services like getting a haircut, it's customary to tip because it's just part of people's income. So I've learned that, for example, for services like getting a haircut, you tip at least 20 to 30%, whereas at a nice restaurant, you would tip 15% if the service was bad, or 20 if it was like good or okay, and more if you were like very pleased, like maybe 25, or even 30 if you're very, very happy. But yeah, maybe at some places for where you get food or maybe a coffee that aren't super fancy, it's more custom to tip 15, 18 or 20%. Like they will have a little screen for you to tap and it will have something along those lines. As far as I know, those are like the normal rates to tip. But definitely something to get used to if you're not used to tipping culture at all. Okay, so I think that's everything. This at least was everything that I could think of when I was thinking of like pros and cons and or like other things. Yeah, all in all, we really, really enjoy living here. It's an amazing place. It's such a great experience to get to live here. Anyway, if you have any other like questions, or if you want to maybe share your experience moving from another place or anything like that, let me know in the comments down below. I love reading your comments. And that's it for now. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!